Welcome, everyone. And I guess the presentation is working. Thanks for the kind introduction. I would like to start with a small experiment. Because when you're hearing talks all over again, neuroscience shows that after 20 minutes, you basically forget everything you just heard before. So I want to start with a small mind wandering that is targeting of raising your attention again for the next 10 minutes. So if you would like to make all eye contact with me right now and put your phone away for just a second. You make eye contact with me and you close your eyes. You close your eyes for a second and you think of the most important thing that you would take with you home if you have to leave forever. You can't choose a person, you have to choose a thing. You can picture it and you open your eyes again. And you raise your hand if you have thought of your high school diploma. Okay. I'm asking this question across the whole country, and no one ever says high school diploma. When my grandfather was in a situation of becoming a refugee in 1944, he chose a warm jacket because he thought he could return after 3 days. And when he then found himself later on being replaced in Germany, he really struggled to get into university and continue with his life, because if you have to leave everything behind, the only thing that helps you move forward is your own brain and your education. And unfortunately, this situation from 1944 hasn't changed much until today. So that means that more than 65 million people are being displaced or having made leave their home, and only 1% of them manage to get back into higher education and continue their educational pathway. And this is a major problem because migration maybe has become aware to us in Germany in 2015 to the huge migration wave. But if you look at history, to the Roman Empire, to many other stages in our historic development, migration is a major force of change. And if you leave people behind without hope and without progress or any option to better their life, they become frustrated and turning towards bad solutions like terrorism, for example. Having experienced this problem with my own family, I was really struck by that we're still facing these obstacles. And after a little bit of research, we found that the UNHCR identified the 4 major barriers since the 70s all over again in studies. So basically, refugees lacking legal documents, legal status, they don't have money to pay for tuition fees, they're lacking the language of the hosting country, or they're not able to get into university because the universities are full. Why actually universities? Why is this the thing we're focusing on? Because another research shows in migration you can reach the young and early childs, and you can reach the one between 16 and 26 who are hungry for education. And having things like Airbnb, like Facebook, like all the technology advancement of our time into mind, we thought, okay, is there not a better way? Is there not a solution that we can find to address these barriers? We came up with a blended learning platform where the basic idea is that refugees can study online and then transferring to a regional partner university and graduating from there. And this sounds super basic, but if you remember your own days at university, you will probably remember lecture halls with 200, 300 people and the professor reading his book, mainly following the same script like he has done the last 20 years. At least I studied economics. For me, it was exactly like that. So higher education is not a particular field or market that has been, let's say, very open to innovative ways of teaching and learning or transferring into the system or out of it. That's why the technology solution is so revolutionary. So for us, the mobile app, for example, is one very important pathway because 70% of our users studying completely online using their smartphone. If you have ever taken one of the online available courses from Harvard, for example, Introduction to Computer Science, you will probably see that most of us are very like, okay, yeah, it's cool, let's take a course from Harvard. They click on it, and then you have actually to work. You have actually to stare 8 hours on your smartphone actively studying, and most of us will drop out. And this is also what the statistics shows, that only 5 to 8% of people who start online learning actually continue doing it. However, in our model, we complement these online courses with buddy and mentoring systems, because we found out that one-on-one contact in real life is actually what drives online learning, what drives the user journey and made it successful. And this is not done just by our feelings, but based on research over the last 5 years. So higher education has opened up. There have been MOOCs, massive open online courses being introduced by the world-leading universities. On the forefront, Harvard and MIT, slowly following German universities like the RWTH Aachen or here in Berlin, the TU Berlin. But most overall, they have been staying skeptical and sort of, could that really work? And they started real small pilots. So what we did is we took all the experience, all the evidence, and put it into one coherent program. And this is maybe why you're giving these talks, what is the aim for it, what's in for you, I think sharing a bit of the learnings we had. And one major learning is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but working with research with universities that who are most likely very keen of sharing their experiences can help to improve and target your product that you're developing for any target group much more likely than you could do it with a small team. So what we have saw is then a rise of student numbers. When we launched Kiron, we had applications before we even had a website. So people heard about us in the news and they start sending applications, and we're aiming for more than 50,000 learners in 2020. Right now we have 2,700 active students. Just to give you an idea, that's normally you can't compare this to like normal app users, but you have to compare it to a middle-sized private university. For example, we have double the size right now like the WHU, just to give you an example. And this is possible because the target group we're working with is highly motivated. 50% of them are coming from Syria. Most of them are here in Germany, but we're also targeting people in the transition countries like in Jordan, in Lebanon and Turkey, because we have the idea if they don't have an option for their future there, they might not even have to leave their home if they see something useful to do in their everyday life. What you also can clearly see here is that students are mainly interested in fields of study that have a high likelihood of getting them a job. So learning computer science, learning engineering, learning business. And that we have a surprisingly high stake of female students, for example, in computer science and engineering compared to German universities. Who are we? My name is Vincent, as I was kindly introduced. Before Kiron, I founded several startups outside of Europe. So I worked in medtech, in e-commerce, in travel companies, and I actually was always focused on making a lean startup, scaling up fast, and then exiting. And this journey was different for me because we started with the problem and with the pain, actually not thinking about turning it into a business at all in the beginning. So the main idea was here, how do we solve that problem for these people? And while doing so, we find more and more people who shared our passion and who joined us. So we started with a completely volunteer-based team and grown into a 100-plus sized company, more than 400 volunteers, and especially many professors, presidents, people at companies being involved on a corporate volunteering level, supporting our cause. And what's interesting here is that the range of partners was very broad. So from small, medium-sized companies in Germany said, okay, we can't find engineerings because Daimler is buying them all from the market. We have to invest in people to train them and join our small companies in the future. Up to Volkswagen, who said, okay, we want to sell cars in the Middle East, but we don't have engineers who are working on German engineering level, but understanding the cultural differences and challenges of that market. We have both of them joining us with the mutual interest to say we invest in people and help them to be educated so they're going to join us later. We have a network of foundations and universities on the other side who said, okay, the refugee cause is maybe a problem that showed us that we are too unflexible and haven't moved with the time. But digitalization is a major challenge and we can't face it alone. So we're partnering up together to form a network and learn from each other and introduce digitalization into the higher education market for the first time. So with our program, it was the first time that we established that massive open online courses by one university have been accepted for transfer credit into other universities. And for everyone who's not in higher education, this sounds total banal and not like a big thing. But it's touching on so many of the quality assurance guidelines and of the accreditation, which is the foundation for every university, that is seen as a major revolution. And that's maybe also the main reason why the Ministry of Education is one of our very early funders and supporters. Coming to our business model, we started not to make a profit. We didn't start to disrupt the market, but we ended up doing so. Why? Because we focused on the problem, that we wanted to solve for our students, and then along the way, our business model developed. So first of all, we got more and more in contact with companies who told us, okay, like I just described, we have problems to target especially the people you're educating. So in terms of diversification, in terms of cultural background, in terms of female engineers, for example. We had universities who have very ambitious goals of internationalization, said, okay, we have to increase our share of international students, but they have actually no way to do that. So if they're coming to us and apply, fine, but we have actually no marketing budgets to attract them from other countries to come to us. So if you can channel the students towards us, we're happy to share a revenue with you that we're getting for each student from the state. And the last one is, we're running what you probably would describe as a freemium model. So we don't have tuition fees. We don't expecting revenues from our students because we think it's morally not appropriate to ask people in a vulnerable situation for money. But we do expect that they give something back. And this is actually a model that has been established in Germany in German fraternities over 200 years. They had old members supporting young members. And we learned from that experience. And we asked our students, so if we get you a job, if you get your degree and you get a job afterwards, would you be willing to dedicate a small percentage of your income to help future generations of students? And roughly 80% of them said yes. Yeah, maybe here the short estimation. We're having eternal revenue stream this year of roughly around 4 million, which we didn't expect. So we started in March 2015, roughly. And we expect this to grow up to 40 million in 2026. Why? Each of these 3 streams is highly profitable. Because once you have a scalable digital solution and the main content is provided by the universities, you're mainly left with no costs of educating people. So for us, it doesn't matter if we have 1,000 students in the course or we have 10,000 students in the course. I put the awards here because Kiron has been lucky to be nominated and awarded with many of them. And I get often the question, so is it worth the effort? And is it worth going for this kind of things? And I have to share maybe yes and maybe no. So it's a lot of time consumed by that. But each of these opened up a network for us. So for example, that I'm standing here on the stage, for example, was due to an award I got in Hamburg from someone from Gründerszene, and he made the introduction to HEUREKA. So these prizes and awards, I can recommend them to startups to apply and go for it because it opened up networks and doors, which is most of the time much more valuable than money in your early days. And I would like to end with a story of one of our students, Saida. Saida is from Syria, and she was exactly able to attend university for 1 week. So she signed up for engineering and had her first days in university, and then her town was attacked. And she had to leave and fled with her family to Turkey, where she spent over 2 years working on construction sites to make a living. And for her, it was always the plan to go back to university. So after these 2 years, they made a journey to Germany by boat, as many of them have done in 2015. And it took her 7 months in Germany before she actually found out about Kiron, because she applied to university. They told her, no, you don't have the status, you have to wait for your asylum status. And finally, she managed to start studying with us. And after 2 months, she wrote me an email that she has to stop and have to go back because her family decided to move to Stuttgart again, and that her mother doesn't want her to continue because it's not appropriate for girls. I actually then made something that's very unusual. If you have an online-based business, I visited her family to find out what is the reason. Actually, the problem dissolved after my visit because the only problem was trust. And she now returned to become one of our students, and she will transfer into university in October. And I like that story so much because it shows that the major problems we are tackling and we are facing are actually not so much solved by technology as we saw in the beginning, but we're actually talking about trust issues and trust problems. And if you look at fintech, for example, or if you look at other industries that are being disrupted at the moment, our learning is it's not so much about the technology that gives you the advantage, but it is about the capacity and the potential of trust that you can build together with your users and together with your partners. I came here on stage to share that story, and I hope some of you may find it interesting or have some learning points that you would like to take away. If you want to find out more, we are here the whole day. Please come and ask questions. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions from now on? Yes?
Are you offering some kind of official degree or something?
Yeah, I understand the question.
Yep.
We wanted to in the beginning, so we went to accreditate ourselves as a university. But I stopped the process the moment I found out that if I'm accredited university, I have to play to the rules of a university, and universities are not allowed to offer any services for not accredited students. That means I would have lost all the benefits I can provide to our students from the beginning on. I always compare it a bit to Airbnb or Uber. We ask the same: are they owning taxis? No. Are they owning flats? No. So we don't owning the content. Is completely with the universities. They are taking the exams and they are providing the degrees. And I think that's a benefit because if you're a refugee, again, coming back to this trust issue, the last thing you want is having on your resume like a refugee university or something. What you want there is a real degree that companies know, that people trust, that you can link into existing communities.
And if I subscribe to your courses, I can go to the university afterwards and make my degree.
Yes. That's the beneficial. You get for each course and each part of the process, you get a certificate, first of all. So you can always, also if you drop out earlier before your degree, you have something in your hand that you can show to people. But we ensure with learning agreements and contracts that the university accepts these courses for transfer credits once you're transferring into a degree.
Yeah. And your revenue comes from? Not the students, as I heard, but
no.
Now?
From companies to roughly 30%, the other from the government and foundations at the moment. But you have to know that university is getting a fee per student who's graduating with them and studying with them. And because this money is capped, we are filling out dropout rates. So if, for example, the FTI Aachen starts a course for 100 students and 30 of them drop out, they wouldn't get that money. But if we fill it out with 30 refugee students, first of all, we don't take away any courses for places for German students. That was very important. But first of all, we enable the universities to unlock that funds that have been lost otherwise. And there we have a fair revenue sharing with them.
Okay, one last question to you, maybe. Pass the cube.
Thanks. Are there any plans? I missed half of the presentation. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. Are there any plans to help pupils get their school degrees? Or?
We have some people who have lost their high school diploma, as I mentioned in my earlier question. Many of them don't have the documents. There is an alternative. There is a competence-based test developed by the government 7 years ago, and we enable our students to take that test. And this works as an equivalent for the high school diploma because we can't change the rules universities have for accessing the university, but we can help students to reach at barriers faster than with the school diploma. We have also cooperations, for example, with Better Marks, who is mirroring the mathematics education from class 8 to 12. Especially in engineering, some of students have lack of mathematical knowledge, and we help them to fill that gaps, but we don't offer school degrees, and we have no plans to do so in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe, okay, we have a
yes, one last one, then we have to go on with the program.
I come find you later.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see.
Okay. Maybe to make two questions.
Yeah, we got mixed up here.
I will be very
go
quick.
ahead.
Legal challenges a lot. So asylum and working with refugees in itself is a complete legal challenge. So alone we have 17 different ways to prove that you're a refugee, for example. Higher education in itself is a highly regulated market, especially if it comes to data protection. So sharing student information with universities is very challenging. And we are active in Germany. We're running offices in France and Jordan. So we have not one data protection law, we have 3 or 4 of them. And I can say the way we're coping with them is by working with partners. So we have EY on our side, for example, for tax law and all these things. And we have other big pro bono companies who are helping us to cope with these legal environments. But it is very challenging.
Okay.
Maybe one last question there and then.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the beginning that there's a major rate of people dropping out of online courses. How did that change with your peer-to-peer model?
Yeah.
And did you experiment with a different structure of the lectures, so maybe shortening the contents?
Yeah. We're experimenting a lot, so we are still not in the phase where we say we have our final model and we're scaling up to the 50,000. We have overall enrolled up to 6,000 students, and now 2,700 are active. So you can see a bit of the dropout there, roughly 50%. we see in the single courses completion rates between 20 and 40%. It depends a bit on the course, if it's an introductory course, if it's a mathematical engineering course. But in the moment, we have like 5 or 6 pilots in almost every field to exactly find out what is the perfect model. And we already have the conclusion there is no perfect model. It has to be always adapted to the certain target group. So students in Jordan are learning different than students in Germany, or students from Syria are learning different than students from Eritrea, for example. Thank you very much. I will be sitting right there, so to not spill off the schedule, happy to talk to you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. I mean.